High above a barren desert in southern Peru, lines stretch across the earth with a precision that seems to resist time itself. They are not random. They are not accidental. They are deliberate, vast, geometric, and unmistakably intentional. Yet from the ground, they are almost invisible. Their true form reveals itself only from the sky, a perspective no human civilization was believed to possess when these markings were first created. And this is where the contradiction begins. A society grounded firmly in the earth appears to have designed something meant to be seen from above. Not symbolically, not abstractly, but with astonishing clarity. What if the past is not as limited as we assume? What if knowledge once existed that we no longer understand? The Nazca Lines do not offer easy answers. They offer something far more unsettling, a quiet challenge to the boundaries of accepted history. The Nazca Desert lies along the southern coast of Peru, between the towns of Nazca and Palpa. It is one of the driest places on Earth. Rain is almost non-existent and winds are rare. These conditions have preserved the desert floor for centuries, leaving its surface largely unchanged. Beneath a thin layer of dark, iron oxide-coated stones lies lighter-colored soil. When the surface stones are removed, pale lines emerge, sharp, enduring, and visible from great heights. It is here, between roughly 500 BCE and 500 CE, that the Nazca culture flourished. A pre-Columbian civilization known for its pottery, textiles, and complex irrigation systems, the Nazca people left behind no written records. Their history must be reconstructed through fragments, artifacts, burial sites, and, most strikingly, the lines etched into the desert itself. At first glance, the Nazca Lines appear simple. Straight lines stretching for kilometers. Trapezoids, spirals, and triangles. But as one ascends, as perspective shifts, something else emerges. Shapes, figures. A hummingbird, its wings extended in perfect symmetry. A monkey, its tail curled into a precise spiral. A spider, delicate and exact. Each figure spans tens, sometimes hundreds, of meters, and yet, their proportions remain consistent, their lines unbroken. This is not myth. This is stone. For centuries, these designs went largely unnoticed. Local inhabitants were aware of certain lines, but their full scale remained hidden. It was not until the early 20th century, with the advent of aviation, that the true nature of the Nazca Lines began to reveal itself. In the 1920s, Peruvian archaeologist Toribio Mejia Zesp observed some of the lines while hiking through the region. He noted their existence but could not grasp their full extent. It was only in the 1930s, when commercial pilots began flying over the desert, that the figures were seen in their entirety. From the air, the desert transformed into a vast canvas. And here is the unsettling part. The Nazca people created designs that are only fully visible from a height they could not physically access. There were no aircraft, no known elevated platforms, no recorded methods of achieving an aerial perspective. Yet the lines align, the proportions hold. The figures remain coherent across immense distances. German mathematician and archaeologist Maria Reich dedicated much of her life to studying these lines. Beginning in the 1940s, she meticulously measured, mapped, and preserved the geoglyphs. Armed with simple tools and unwavering dedication, she walked the desert for decades, documenting each line, each curve, each figure. Reich believed the lines had astronomical significance. She proposed that certain lines aligned with celestial events, the rising and setting of stars, the solstices, the movements of the sun. It was a compelling theory. After all, many ancient cultures observed the sky with precision. But further research revealed inconsistencies. Not all lines corresponded to celestial alignments. Some did, but many did not. History does not break easily. But here it bends. The physical construction of the lines is deceptively simple. Workers removed the dark surface stones to reveal the lighter soil beneath, creating lines approximately 10 to 15 centimeters deep. The width varies, but many lines are several meters across. The process required no advanced tools, only coordination, planning, and labor. Radiocarbon dating of wooden stakes found at the ends of some lines places their creation between 200 BCE and 600 CE. These stakes may have been used as guides, suggesting that the Nazca people employed a system of measurement and alignment. Some researchers propose that grids were laid out on a smaller scale and then expanded onto the desert floor, allowing for accurate reproduction of complex shapes. This explanation addresses the how, but not entirely the why. Many of the lines intersect, overlap, or run parallel without apparent pattern. Some extend in straight paths for kilometers, ignoring natural obstacles. Others form intricate figures with careful attention to proportion and detail. The hummingbird's beak points precisely along a straight line. The monkey's tail spirals inward with mathematical consistency. These are not random markings. They are deliberate compositions. Mainstream archaeological interpretation suggests that the Nazca Lines were part of ritual practices. The desert itself may have been a sacred space, and the lines functioned as pathways for ceremonial processions. Some lines lead to or from water sources, supporting the idea that they were connected to rituals for rain and fertility, crucial concerns in such an arid environment. In this view, the figures were not meant to be seen in their entirety by human eyes. Their visibility from above may have been symbolic, offerings to deities, perhaps, or expressions of cosmological beliefs. The act of creating the lines, of walking them, may have held more significance than their visual appearance. It is a grounded explanation. It aligns with known practices of ancient cultures. And yet, it leaves certain questions unresolved. Why such precision? Why such scale? Why figures that only reveal their full form from a vantage point no human of that time could access? Some researchers have explored alternative interpretations, still within the bounds of credible inquiry. One theory suggests that the lines functioned as a form of social coordination, a way to organize labor, reinforce community identity, or establish territorial markers. Another proposes that the lines were part of a complex system of pilgrimage routes, guiding participants through ritual landscapes. There is also evidence that some lines align with underground water sources. In a region where water was life, such knowledge would have been invaluable. The lines may have served as markers, pointing toward hidden aquifers or channels. But even here, the scale persists. The figures remain vast, their forms refined beyond what utility alone would demand. And this is where the tension lingers. The Nazca Lines do not fit neatly into a single explanation. They resist reduction. They invite interpretation, but they do not confirm it. Each theory illuminates part of the picture, but none fully resolves it. Standing in the desert at ground level, the lines are easy to miss. They appear as shallow depressions, subtle shifts in color. It is only with distance, with elevation, that their coherence emerges. This duality is central to their mystery. They exist simultaneously as simple markings and as grand designs. And perhaps that is the point. The Nazca people may not have needed to see the lines as we do. Their understanding of space, of ritual, of meaning, may have operated on principles we do not fully grasp. What appears to us as a contradiction may have been, for them, entirely consistent. But here is the enduring question. What does it mean to create something you cannot fully see? It suggests intention beyond immediate perception. It implies a form of knowledge that is not dependent on direct observation. It challenges the assumption that visibility defines purpose. The Nazca Lines remain etched in silence. They have endured for over 1,000 years, untouched by rain, preserved by the desert's stillness. They do not explain themselves. They do not reveal their maker's thoughts or beliefs. They simply exist. And in their existence, they ask us to reconsider. Not what we know, but how we know it. The past is often treated as a fixed narrative, a sequence of events, understood and categorized. But every so often, something emerges that resists that structure. Something that does not contradict history outright, but gently distorts its edges. The Nazca Lines are one such distortion. They do not demand belief. They do not require speculation. They ask only to be observed, to be acknowledged, to be considered. And perhaps that is where their true significance lies. Not in what they are, but in what they reveal about the limits of our understanding. The lines remain silent, exact, unmoved by centuries of windless time. And when viewed again from above, from that impossible vantage, the question returns with renewed force. Not louder but deeper, because the Nazca Lines are not simply drawings. They are decisions. Measured, repeated, sustained decisions made across generations. This was not a single act. It was continuity, and this is where the contradiction deepens. If the lines were purely ritual pathways, then their repetition across hundreds of kilometers suggests an enduring system of belief, one that required precision without immediate visual confirmation. If they marked water, then their scale exceeds practicality. If they were symbolic offerings, then their consistency implies a shared, stable visual language that remained intact for centuries. But here is the unsettling part. The Nazca culture itself did not endure in the same way. By around 600 CE, the society began to decline, likely due to environmental changes, deforestation, and shifting climate patterns. Archaeological evidence points to increasing drought conditions, which would have placed immense strain on an already fragile ecosystem. And yet, the lines remained untouched. This is not myth. This is stone. Even as the society that created them faded, the geoglyphs endured. Their purpose, whatever it may have been, did not require maintenance in the conventional sense. They were not structures that collapsed. They were not systems that failed. They were imprints, minimal in depth yet vast in scale, preserved by the very environment that challenged their creators. It is a quiet paradox. A civilization vulnerable to environmental instability produced one of the most stable visual legacies on Earth. And this raises another question. Were the lines meant to endure beyond their makers? There is no evidence of repair or alteration in many of the major figures. Once created, they were left as they were. This suggests a form of completion, not in stages but in intention. The act was finite. The result